Hey, welcome back to TheLordFussington's walkthrough of the critically acclaimed game Demon's Souls. I'm your walkthrough master, TheLordFussington, and this is part 2 of Valley of Defilement 5-2, the part after part 1, which is on my YouTube channel. And it's the part before the third part, which is called, it's not called part 3 of Valley of Defilement 5-2, it's called Dirty Colossus of Valley of Defilement 5-2, because that is the video in which I killed the boss, who is the Dirty Colossus, and he's the boss of Valley of Defilement 5-2. In the previous video, we, or rather I don't know why I said we, because there's only one of me, unless I think of myself as more than two. I'm really one person. I'm Lord Fussington. Well, I'm confused. Also, in the previous video we killed the slug. The slug dropped dusk gold armor and all that. We also went to the little island. We basically did the outskirts of this area, which is after the very first fog gate of Valley of Defilement 5-2. So we did the outskirts. Now we're going across the islands here, which is right next to the boardwalk that's on the cliff. So, yeah. Not very much has been done because the giant depraved ones take a bit of time, and going through the swamp takes a bit of time. But anyway, well, also there was the first section of Valley of Defilement 5-2, which is where all those poison jellies are and all that. Now we're going to be dealing with slugs generally. This part of the and then the settlement, which is to me the third part of the Valley of Defilement 5-2, which is after the second fog gate and before the boss. So slash some slugs, right? And they will hit you because you're an enemy. I don't know why they're so aggressive. It's a little bit unnecessary. So I grabbed a dragon bone smasher because I like to smash things. Actually, I like to cleave things, but apparently it just smashes. Now you see those slugs there. Now they're crowded around the large sword of moonlight. Okay, so we want to get that weapon basically. So I'm pretty sure you can shoot them down from here, but I opt to go around and shoot the very top of them, and then they'll all fall, and they'll bring the large sword of moonlight with them. They won't be like carrying it, but it falls with them basically. So because they don't have hands to carry things because they're slugs. So this is all valuable information. Take note, slugs don't have hands. So you don't actually have to go here yet. You can just sort of go by it, and because I think that's what I end up doing. Obviously, it takes me a little bit to realize that this is an utter waste of time, unless I decide just to shoot the very top, like the slug nest or whatever it is. I wonder if you just stand there and you just keep falling, and then eventually the sword falls with them. But I've always shot it down or cleaved it. So changing ring now, I think. Ring of Herculean strength. So I've taken the thieves ring off, which means it'll be easier for enemies to detect me. Now generally I opt for less health if I've got to because I usually wear the cling ring and the thieves ring. I think it's an excellent combination most of the time for PvE. But yeah, I think you can usually handle not having as much health, so it's better to take off the cling ring, because then if you don't have much health but you're not pulling as many enemies, it's sort of balanced. I guess vice versa, it would also balance it out there as well. Regardless, this isn't very important. What is important are these guys, the depraved ones, giant depraved ones. And that's why I probably want the health, because they hit quite hard. So I talked about how to defeat them in the last video. Basically, you hit them. They have high defense, they don't flinch, and they hit hard. What you want to do is you want to get near enough that he tries to hit you, but you always want to back up out of his reach and then slash him. So after he swings and he misses you entirely, you didn't even block because you know he didn't hit you, then you attack, right? And only 2 shots, then you back up. You'll probably have to block with your shield, then you let the guard down so that your stamina comes back quickly, and see, so that's how you're supposed to do it. And now you block, although there I managed to go around him, so here I had to block. Now I'm taking a risk, and that's what happens. So right now, actually, I'm doing a different strategy than I did in part 1. I'm trying to go around him to basically dodge his attack entirely. It's a little bit faster, but it's higher risk. The best way is to always just back away from him, basically. You keep backing away out of his reach, and then when he misses you, that's when you attack. And then you can circle him and then back up from there. You might have to block an attack, but you shouldn't stop backing up. And then he'll try to hit you again, but this time he should miss, because you've continuously backed up. So, and then you can attack him again. It's just rinse and repeat. Now, if I didn't explain that well enough, you can always go to part 1 of Valley of Defilement 5-2, where there are fantastic examples of how to defeat the giant depraved ones, which I did not really show here because I decided to do the circling method. And I've just called it the circling method. It isn't actually a, a documented method or anything like that. You won't find it on the official site or anything, but it does exist. Because I've made it. I didn't invent it. I mean, it's just it's an obvious way of fighting. Circling around the enemy to get behind him and then attack. It's one of the ways you wanted to. Anyway, this is important. After defeating the mosquitoes, you want to go over here, where there's an item. So you pick up the item. In this area, there isn't anything yet, but when you have a shade less than pure black world tendency, a primeval demon will spawn. Okay, which obviously, once you kill him, you get a colorless demon soul, and you can upgrade certain weapons with that. So I'm pointlessly checking out this area because I'm not sure if there's an item. I know now, in retrospect, that there isn't actually an item anywhere in this vicinity. So, the Lord Fussington of the past is an utter fool, but the Lord Fussington of the present is less of a fool and just a bit of an idiot. And that's fine. I'm sure the future it'll be even worse. Well, actually, I don't know what the future, because I'm not Nostradamus. If I was Nostradamus reincarnated, because obviously I wouldn't be exactly. So you kill this slug here. That was a great shot, by the way. Oh, another one. There's all sorts of good gameplay in these walkthroughs. Really, really good gameplay. And I think excellent commentary. The sort of commentary that not only keeps people awake, but is interesting, very captivating as well. I am all about the charm. Well, my charm, of course. I have next to no charm. So we climb up this boardwalk, and we'll find another slug. And the slug leaps. I don't know why I'm narrating, because it's obvious what's happening. Because you're seeing it with your eyes. There's nothing really to say about the slugs, to be honest, because they do drop chunks of sucker stone and shards as well. So this is a good place to farm them, I suppose. I don't know if it's as good as 4-2, but it's a viable farming spot. They don't really have... it's only the leap you have to worry about, and it's easily blocked. I don't know if it's as easy to roll backwards. It's easier to block, probably. So, now I'm shooting this nest of slugs. Okay, so the large sword of moonlight has fallen with those slugs. Okay, I recommend having the thieves ring on, of course, because if you don't, you'll just be pulling all of the slugs, and as much as they're a fairly easy enemy to have to deal with, they do, many of them together can be problematic, as with most enemies. You know, you can get overwhelmed, especially when the slugs, some of them are dead, and it's hard to tell. It can be hard to tell when they're alive. They basically look the same because they don't like, you know, like in like in Zelda, you know, the enemy sort of just disappears in like a puff of smoke or something. Well, it doesn't happen here. They're still there. So, you know, I don't know which slug is alive and which one isn't. Although I can tell because they move. So, you know, just disregard the entire conversation that just took place. Or I say conversation, but it's really more of a monologue. But honestly, and rather seriously, wear the thieves' ring, or you'll be pulling them like this, and they'll disguise themselves with the dead slugs, basically, and if they all jump at you at once, although you shouldn't be in the thick of things, you should just sort of be, you know, see, now it gets a little bit confusing. I mean, you can still tell because they're, you know, several of them are moving, but see, you can't hit all of them at once. So now I start panicking, and by panicking I mean just running in the direction opposite of where they are. I don't know why this sword doesn't cut them in half. Oh, right, because it's a smashes, the dragon bone smasher. That's stupid. Yeah, but I bet with the meat cleaver it would be the same situation. Like, why doesn't it cleave? I mean, it should be cleaving things if it's a... Why name something the meat cleaver when it doesn't even cleave meat? Because slugs are meat, essentially. Also, why does that sword have to be so big? Like, the meat cleaver, I mean, what sort of meat are you cleaving exactly? Dragon? So many questions unanswered. So, there's the large sword of moonlight, just glinting around a couple of slugs. Or it's actually not around them, the slugs are around the moonlight. Yeah, I have problems with words. Very ineloquent. Okay, so now I'm just finishing these guys off, as you can probably tell, and then we can move on from this horrible area. This sword, it's not, I wouldn't say it's a really great sword. Oh, pure sucker stone, brilliant. So now we have two, I think. I wouldn't say that it's one of the best swords in the game. It isn't, and this is in all seriousness. It does ignore shields, so which makes it a viable weapon, but you know, there are much better upgraded weapons that do magic damage, for instance. So as much as you might feel, well, this ignores shields, this must be really good in PvP, it isn't. I don't recommend it, really. But I don't even know if there's a lot of PvPing that still goes on in Demon Souls. Imagine Most people that are playing either Demon Souls or Dark Souls are opting for the latter, given that it's a bit more recent. But then again, I mean, I'm playing this game. I will do Dark Souls as well. I think. I mean, it's really dependent on school and how much time I have. But yeah, chances are I'll start working on Dark Souls, and there'll be some terrible walkthroughs for that as well. So I've changed rings now, because here there's a lot of points where I can be ambushed. So there's the filthy woman. That's her name. I didn't name her that. If anyone's feeling a bit... See, filthy woman. Her name's Filthy Woman. Or that's how she's referred to in this game. And she probably is filthy. You know, not in a good way. You can buy stuff from... This is basically, if you didn't prepare, this is the woman you want to see. You know, she'll sell you black turpentine and arrows, rotten arrows, of course. Everything will be overpriced, but, you know, that's sort of Royal Lotus and all that. You don't really need... I mean, against the boss, you don't need very much. Anyway, here, this is the settlement area, and the third part of, or the way I view it, the third part of Valley of Defilement 5-2. The third section of this area, rather. And right before the boss, it's the settlement area, as you can see. And here it's easy to get ambushed. You can pretty much see all of the, or some of the depraved ones, kind of hiding around corners and in these houses, you see. We've already just spotted 4. So, you want to be careful here. And that's why I put on the Thieves' Ring, so I don't pull them all and then have to fight them. Or basically get stabbed in the back a couple of times and then fight them all. So, Late Moon Grass. Arguably one of the best grasses in the game. I say arguably, but that's, you know, it just is one of the best grasses in the game. Now, we've seen plenty of depraved ones, so I don't think I have to analyze the move pattern, really. I say that, but I also don't know the move pattern, because I've never really worried about them. Okay, well, the move pattern is basically slashing. Lots of slashing, and sometimes a stab. So, when you go through this area, you'll still pull depraved ones, even with the Thieves' Ring on. I recommend always turning the camera, so you're always aware of your surroundings. This is the area where you should be just a little bit paranoid, because it's just easy to get backstabbed. And it's much better to backstab your enemies in the back rather than be backstabbed by your enemies. Tip for life. It's just a tip for life. And if you need help doing that, basically what you do is you get behind the enemy and you stab. So, and there's an example. Oh, what a move. Did you see it? Roll and then stab. It's just... Sometimes I amaze myself, because I didn't think I could do that. So here's a rotten arrows. Useless. Or, well, I shouldn't say useless, because pretty much everything is useful in some way or another. You know. The rotten arrow, if you have no arrows... Actually, you should use the rotten arrows to pull, because they don't do a lot of damage. They're relatively cheap. So they're good for pulling, I think. The problem is you probably want to put a couple of arrows into whatever it is you're pulling, the enemies you're pulling as well, so it's better to use the normal arrows or fire arrows or whatever arrows you prefer using. I mean, I just use regular arrows. Although sometimes I like the light arrows, you know. Those are great. Of course, I probably don't have any at this point. So here I'm, you know, well, I have a lot of Royal Lotus, but, you know, you want to, if you don't have Cling Ring on or whatever, you want to use the Royal Lotus as soon as you get on the boardwalk, because you don't want to be with too much. You don't want your health to be too low. Dark Moon Grass. No comment. Dark Moon Grass. No comment. Poisoned again. I mean, I know I just pointed it out, but that's how I know things are occurring. Once I see words on the screen, I've got to read them, or I just don't know if something's actually happening. It says Valley of Defilement, top right hand corner. That's where I am. I'm in the Valley of Defilement, not the other valley. Although wouldn't be the worst place. So you can see how these depraved ones and see what I did there. I turned the camera, I was looking around me, and that's what you want to do. You want to make sure that you're aware of your surroundings, especially here, because most of the time you're not really in this kind of situation where you're surrounded by enemies, or they're going to be jumping off, higher levels and things like that. Most of the time they're just in front of you, or they're hiding behind a barricade and you can see their head peeking out of it. But here they just it's difficult to spot them all. So you've got to make sure you know who's around you at all times, and usually they'll be running at you if you're close enough, even with the Thieves' Ring. Which I think I've said, but that's one of my great qualities. Redundancy. Okay, so I'm looking at the items I've missed and where I need to go next. That's the one attack you want to be careful with. They basically rush at you and kick. So if you don't have your shield up, or you don't have a good enough shield, they'll knock it. You'll flinch, basically. There isn't any poison in this game, I'm afraid. Unlike Dark Souls. Dark Souls. The problem with Dark Souls, I just haven't figured out, because this is pretty linear. I just have to break the videos down into worlds, basically, or like each uploading day I break it into worlds. So I upload 3 videos per world, or per part of a world. So say Valley of Defilement 5-1, there's 3 videos for that. Valley of Defilement 5-2, 3 videos. There'll only be 1 for 5-3. But then obviously it's dependent on length as well. Dark Souls, I just don't know. It's not as linear. I mean, they say it's open world. I think it's maybe half of an open. It's not like Skyrim or anything by Bethesda or whatever. Actually, is Skyrim by Bethesda? I think so. I know there was something problem. Anyway, doesn't really matter. It's not like the Elder Scrolls series or Fallout or anything like that. You can't just go anywhere. You have to follow certain paths. And Dark Souls. So, by the way, you want to go in this direction first. The other direction leads to the boss. You want to go here because we're going to knock down that bridge we saw in part 1 of Valley of Defilement 5-2. And there's also a crystal gecko near that bridge, and there's mosquitoes and stuff as well. Yeah, I just haven't figured out how to break down the Dark Souls videos, or do it in such a way that it's not messy, I guess I could do it by area, but you often backtrack. You often go back to certain areas, and then there's a whole farming situation where you've got to spend a good amount of time doing that as well. So, that's a little bit problematic. I haven't really thought of a way to do that yet, or a neat way to do that. But I'm sure I will. Well, actually, I'm not. I might just do Hitman. No, Dark Souls will be done. I mean, during the Dark Souls, I might also do a bit of Hitman because that'll be coming out in, October or November or whatever. Also on this boardwalk. Oh, actually, let me just talk about the crystal gecko. So, you want to make sure you kill the crystal gecko. I suggest range. I suggest having good aim, but you may not have that because I certainly don't. And I'm not exactly, you may have good aim, and if you do, great. I think my aim's quite poor. Actually, I think I get this. I mean, really, the trick is to just aim slightly, like at the top of him, basically. So he'll just keep moving backwards, and you don't have to move your cursor too much. But you can rush him. It's just if he falls and you have to chase him afterwards, you're gonna have to go around again. So, well, actually, not if you knock down the bridge. I'm not sure if you can climb back up. You might be able to. It doesn't really matter because just do range or just chase and make sure you get him. Regardless, the crystal gecko, has to be killed. That's just how it works. I should also point out that there is a sniping point here, somewhere around here, where in part 1, right, the video previous to this one, because this is part 2, there were some giant depraved ones sort of around an island, right? Well, if you're on that boardwalk, you can actually just snipe them all. So keep that in mind. So now I'm looking for shaman's robes or whatever, which are basically, there was a guy here, right? Depraved one with that purple thing around him, faint stone residue or whatever it is, and he's the one that has the shaman robes. Some people say shaman. I don't know which one's correct. Frankly, I don't care. And there's the shaman's clothes rather than robes. Okay, so now we're gonna go back up here, and just one little area before the boss that we have to clear, and yeah, then it's the boss. It was very easy. Another very easy boss. The most difficult part of that fight is dealing with flies, but just run into the torches. Anyway, I'll post that video as well. So I'm just scanning the area. If I seem at all a little bit paranoid in this area here, it's because in my memory there was a giant depraved one lurking about, but the only giant depraved one that even spawns here is a black phantom, and you need obviously black world tendency for that. So nothing to worry about, just my own distorted memory. That was a really tough point there, trying to walk over. Oh, another one. Tricky. So now I'm just being careful because I know that there's ambushes. There are ambushes. Shard of faint stone, 2 of them, so that makes it shards. Yes. I think what probably happened is I was doing black world tendency, and this must have been a couple of years ago now. I must have been doing black world tendency with one of the characters I have, And see, now I'm checking to see where that enemy could be. And I must have pulled him in this section, because I do remember fighting one. Maybe it's because this place looks exactly like part 1. Sorry, I mean Valley of Defilement 5-1. And you end up pulling some giant depraved ones into these types of areas. Obviously because I just said they look. Anyway, it doesn't really matter, because there isn't one here. And I'm getting ambushed even though I was trying to be careful. So just keep in mind that there are 2 depraved ones on either side when you walk through that doorway. It's not a door, there isn't a door there, so it's a doorway. I mean, even that's a bit of a stretch. So you see how how that attack makes you flinch a little bit, so you want to avoid it. Oh, Old Spice. I really don't need that. So I know that there's one guy that actually there should be some ambushing area here. So that's what I'm looking for. I think it's still a little bit further on. I think the Black Phantom actually spawns around here somewhere. Alright, here are these 2 morons. And masterfully done. That's a rarity in my case. Usually I'll get hit at least 6 times because I'm shit. But worked out there. We got a shottle, whatever that thing is called. Which is a really good, almost fell off there, which is really good against shields, so keep that in mind. And now I'm gonna carefully walk towards the fog gate, because at the time, past LordFussington, of course, was worried about a giant depraved one, which does not exist in this area, unless it's Black World tendency, in which it will spawn, but not even right here. Anyway, nothing to worry about. Just gotta get to the fog gate, which brings me to the next video, entitled Dirty Colossus of Valley of Defilement 5-2. Yeah. I've been TheLordFussington. Thank you very much for watching. Kindly rate, comment, and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it.